Thanks for tuning in. Today I will be covering the Michael Jackson biopic trailer. Now, this is very exciting news for the MJ fans because this generation, and maybe even my generation, really don't know much about Michael Jackson as we thought we knew. The man, the myth, the legend, everything that encompassed him, because he wasn't just a singer or an artist, but he was a performer, he was an entertainer, he was an activist, he was so many different things. And hopefully, this movie will encompass all those things and show those different aspects of Michael Jackson's career and his life. But right now, we don't know much other than the trailer. Now, the trailer is only a minute and 13 seconds, I do believe. So check it out on YouTube if you have the time. But it looks very promising, especially with, I believe his name is Jafar Jackson, who is the nephew of Michael Jackson, the son of Jermaine Jackson, actually playing his uncle in this movie. And this movie is set for release of April 24th of next year, so 2026. So hopefully we don't have a pushback on the movie, and hopefully there is a lot of promise to the movie because we've seen biopics done wrong before. Not as often, I would think, but I know for sure we've seen it a couple of times. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But this movie is entitled Just Michael is his first name. As I talked about before, it's a minute and 13 seconds with his Jermaine Jackson's son, Jafar Jackson, playing his uncle, Michael Jackson, of course. And then you have people like Coleman Domingo, who's playing Joe Jackson, and Nia Long, who's playing Catherine Jackson, the mother and the father of Michael Jackson. And then also, interestingly, there was Derek Luke is playing Johnny Cochran. So it's kind of interesting with Derek Luke. He played Diddy in a Notorious movie, and now he's playing Johnny Cochran in this Michael Jackson biopic. So he has many different assets, not assets, but more aspects of his career that he plays. He's very versatile as far as range goes. So it just shows you his range. Um, Also, one of my college um, associates or friends, you could say, Jamal Henderson is playing Jermaine Jackson, which I'm interested to see him in. So he's making moves. So kudos to Jamal for that role. But it is a star-studded lineup, and there'll be more information to come as the movie rolls out more. It gets closer to that release date, and it should be a very exciting time. And I'm pretty sure it's going to rejuvenate the Jackson fan base, even pretty much bring in some new fans, mostly younger fans that are not familiar with his music because when he died in '09, that generation after him, his music still continued, but people didn't realize who he was because this era has been about Taylor Swift, but Michael Jackson can't be compared to any other superstar or any other artist that you want to put up there in that high and that light because they can't do both of what he can do. Like Taylor Swift, they say she's a phenomenal singer, writer, so forth. But she can't dance the way Michael Jackson can. She can't bring out the people like Michael Jackson could. And I'll talk about this in another segment of why Michael Jackson can't be compared to any other artist because he's so multifaceted and he's just not an artist, but he's just a pillar of what music was and what society was because he was more than just one thing, opposed to like Taylor Swift or even Beyonce for that matter. Michael Jackson just has so much superstar power in an era that he wasn't even a part of the social media era. So if he had the social media on his back or in his disposal, it would have been 20 times even more unfathomable of what he could have done. But nevertheless, hopefully this movie will show those different aspects because I remember watching the Jackson American Dream miniseries as a kid, and those were amazing. And I would have been satisfied with just those, but that movie, it kind of showed every aspect of his family, which he had a huge family. Janet Jackson's, Ruby Jackson, the Tito's, the Jermaines. His dad, Joe Jackson, has his own personality as well. Shows so many different aspects, but this movie is just specifically about him, and I think it's much needed, especially around this time where superstardom is like overplayed. But then Michael Jackson doc will show you the true power of a celebrity, somebody who had different influence in society, and unfortunately, he had eh, um, different things come up in his life that kind of smeared his name. But I think this doc will help bring light to who he was and kind of explain um, how he is, how he was as a person. But this is one of those biopics that you can't mess up. You know, I believe they, or I really know they messed up the biopic for Tupac in that All Eyes on Me movie, especially where they started it, and then where they finished the doc. I mean, the bio series. But I feel like this one that you can't really mess up, and I think them using a family member to play Michael Jackson will help even more. Then on top of that, you have legendary Antoine Fuqua who's directing, so that's going to show you that it's going to go in the right place. Um, and another thing I noticed in the trailers, they showed Quincy Jones, or you could hear Quincy Jones talking, and Quincy Jones was very influential in Michael Jackson's career, especially behind the scenes. Quincy Jones working with Ray Charles and some of the biggest stars, musicians, not just artists, but musicians, people who played instruments and people who knew how to read music and things like that. They took they had a different ear for music and they had a different pride for music. So that was very influential for Michael and other artists as well that were before Michael and even after Michael. So hopefully they show that side of Quincy Jones, and rest in peace to Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, by the way. Um, but I don't know, Quincy Jones was kind of narrating um, the trailer, so hopefully he won't be, or maybe it might be beneficial for him to narrate, or the voice of Quincy Jones because he passed away, um, to narrate this film. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that as well. And will this movie cover his entire life? Or hopefully it doesn't just cover a certain piece of his life. Hopefully it goes all the way from childhood up until towards the end until '09. Um Another question I had was, will Prince be depicted in this movie? Because there's been a lot of Prince and comparisons for Prince and Michael, which are two different artists, but they were very powerful during their era. So will Prince make a appearance in this movie, or a person playing Prince, because Prince has passed away as well, rest in peace. Will there be somebody playing Prince, and will Prince show up in this movie? That'll be exciting to see as well. And I'm hoping they show some of Michael Jackson's activism in this movie, because it's very important to know that about him, as just not just as a person, because most people just see the entertainer, the musician, the artist, the singer, but he was an activist as well. He stood up for a lot of great causes, and I'll talk about that in my another segment as well. But there's so many questions I have right now, but of course I'll keep the coverage up until the movie is released, and until next time, I'll see you next time.